The girl no one helped. The city of Uranus never slept. Lights flashed in every color. Airships floated between tall metal towers, and thousands of voices filled the streets. But far below the shining walkways, deep in the shadowed alleys, a small alien girl sat alone beside a pile of broken crates. Her name was Lyra. She was cold, hungry, and forgotten. Her silver skin was covered in dirt, and her thin arms trembled as she hugged herself for warmth. Her bright blue eyes had once been full of light, but now they were dull and tired. No one looked at her. Crowds passed by. Merchants shouted prices, and guards patrolled the upper streets. Down here, in the lower zone, no one cared who lived or died. Lyra had been born on a peaceful world called Lyra Prime. Her people, the Illyrians, were known for art and energy technology, but their planet had been destroyed in a terrible war. The survivors were sold as slaves or left to starve. Lyra had escaped years ago, running until her feet bled. She thought she would find safety on Uranus, but she found only cruelty. Every day she begged for food near the market gates. Sometimes people threw her old bread. Sometimes they threw stones. They called her names she didn't understand, but she knew they were cruel. Once, a group of alien boys cornered her and laughed as they kicked over her small bowl. She didn't fight back. She just curled up and waited for it to end. Now, as night came again, Lyra sat under a broken neon sign. The light flickered above her, spelling half a word she couldn't read. Her stomach hurt, her hands shook, and her throat was dry. She looked at the food stall across the street, where a vendor was cleaning up leftovers. The smell made her dizzy. She waited until he turned away, then crawled closer and grabbed a small fruit from the edge of the table. Before she could run, a heavy hand grabbed her arm. The vendor shouted, "Thief!" and hit her across the face. The crowd turned to watch. People laughed as he threw her to the ground. "She steals again!" Someone shouted, "Feed her to the drains!" Lyra tried to crawl away, but the vendor kicked her side. Her body was too weak to move. After a few minutes, they left her there, broken and bleeding. The laughter faded, replaced by the hum of engines overhead. She lay still, her breath shallow. She whispered to herself, "Please, someone help me," but no one did. Rain began to fall, mixing with the dust on her skin. She curled up beside the wall and stared at the alley light, blinking in the distance. She thought about her mother, her home, the warm blue oceans of Lyra. She tried to remember their songs, but her voice cracked. She felt her body grow cold. Maybe this was the end, she thought. Maybe she would finally stop feeling hungry. Then she heard footsteps, slow and steady. A tall shadow moved toward her through the rain. Lyra shut her eyes, waiting for another kick or insult. But the voice that spoke was different, soft, deep, and kind. "Hey," the voice said. "Are you all right?" Lyra opened her eyes slowly. A man stood in front of her. Human. He wore a dark jacket with a torn earth emblem on the sleeve. His hair was short, his face tired, and his eyes full of concern. He knelt beside her and took off his pack. She tried to pull away, but he raised his hands gently. "It's okay. I won't hurt you." He opened a small packet and offered her a piece of bread. Lyra stared at it, not believing it was real. Her lips trembled, her hands too weak to lift it. He smiled softly. "Go on, eat." She took it slowly and bit into it. It was dry, but it was food, and she hadn't tasted food in days. Tears filled her eyes, and she whispered, "Why?" The man looked at her for a long moment, then said quietly, "Because someone should have helped you a long time ago." He stood up, his shadow falling across her broken body. People around them were staring. Some laughed, some whispered. A tall alien guard sneered, "Hey human, leave the trash where you found it." The man turned his head, his jaw tightening. "She's not trash," he said firmly. "She's a person." The crowd laughed louder. Lyra hid her face, afraid they would hurt him too. But the man didn't move. He took off his jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders. It was warm, and it smelled like smoke and rain. He lifted her gently in his arms, ignoring the jeers. "Come on, kid," he whispered. "You're not dying here tonight." As he walked through the alley, the laughter followed him. "Look at the humans saving garbage," someone shouted, but his voice never changed. He just said softly, "Let them laugh. They don't know what they've lost." Lyra looked up at him through half-closed eyes. His face was rough and tired, but his eyes shone with something she had never seen before. "Kindness," she whispered. "Who are you?" He smiled faintly. "Just someone who hates seeing the world like this." The city lights reflected on the wet streets as he carried her away. The rain washed the dirt from her face, and for a moment, she looked like a star fallen from the sky. She didn't know it yet, but this one act of mercy would change everything. Because somewhere in the endless night above Uranus, something ancient was watching, and the moment a human chose to save what others had thrown away, the universe itself began to shift. The invitation. The rain had not stopped when Ethan carried Lyra through the narrow streets of Uranus. His boots splashed through puddles, the cold wind cutting against his face, but he didn't stop. He held her close, feeling how light she was, like she could disappear if he loosened his grip. The alley lights flickered above them as they passed broken signs and old storage doors. Finally, he reached a small metal building at the edge of the sector. The door hissed open when he pressed his hand on the scanner. Inside was a tiny workshop, warm and filled with the smell of oil and metal. Machines hummed quietly, wires ran along the ceiling, and a small heater glowed in the corner. Ethan placed Lyra carefully on a couch near the heat. She stared at everything, her big blue eyes wide with confusion. He took off his gloves and began to make something in a small pot. A soup made from protein packs and water. It wasn't much, but it was warm. He handed her a cup. "Drink this," he said softly. She sniffed it first, then took a small sip. Her hand shook, but color slowly returned to her cheeks. Ethan sat across from her, watching quietly. He had seen many things in his life: wars, refugees, even alien slavers. But something about this small girl broke him in a way nothing else had. She was just a child, yet the city had treated her like she was nothing. He sighed and leaned back. "What's your name?" he asked. She hesitated, then whispered, "Lyra." Her voice was soft, like wind through glass. He nodded. "I'm Ethan," he said. "I'm from Earth." She tilted her head, confused. "Earth?" "Yeah." He smiled faintly. "A small blue planet far from here." She blinked, thinking, then whispered, "Blue? Like your eyes?" Ethan chuckled softly. "Yeah, something like that." For the first time in years, Lyra felt safe. The warmth of the room, the soft light, the food, it all felt unreal. She looked around at the strange human tools and blinking lights. "You live here?" she asked. "Yeah," Ethan replied. "I fix machines, sell old ship parts, try to survive." She frowned. "They hate you too." He looked down at his hands and said quietly, "Sometimes, but I don't care anymore." Outside, thunder rolled. The storm echoed through the metal walls. Ethan looked at her again and said, "You shouldn't be out there alone." Lyra looked away, hugging herself. "No one wants me," she said. Ethan's jaw tightened. "They're wrong," he said. "You're worth saving." For a moment, silence filled the room. Then Lyra asked softly, "Why did you help me?" Ethan thought about it, his eyes distant. "Because once," he said, "someone helped me when no one else would." He didn't explain further, but the pain in his voice told her everything. Later that night, Lyra fell asleep on the couch. Ethan sat by the window, watching the rain slide down the glass. He couldn't explain it, but he felt something strange since he met her. A feeling in the air, like static. He turned toward her. Her silver skin reflected the heater's light, and faint markings glowed under her arms. They looked like energy veins, moving slowly, pulsing in rhythm. He frowned, whispering to himself, "What are you, kid?" At dawn, Ethan was woken by a deep vibration. His tools rattled on the table, and the lights flickered. He stepped outside, and the sky above the city was glowing faintly, a strange golden shimmer, spreading like a wave. People came out of their homes, staring up in fear. Ethan felt a sharp pain in his chest. He turned. Lyra was standing in the doorway, her eyes wide and glowing bright blue. She looked terrified. "They're coming," she whispered. Ethan grabbed her shoulders. "Who's coming?" Lyra's voice trembled. "The ones who left me, the ones who call me broken." Before Ethan could speak, a loud explosion shook the city. Far above, a massive silver ship broke through the clouds, its engines roaring. The same insignia glowed on its side, the mark of the Illyrian Dominion. Panic spread through the streets. Ethan grabbed his old plasma pistol and turned to Lyra. "You need to tell me what's happening," he said firmly. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. "They don't want me alive," she whispered. "I carry what they fear." Before Ethan could ask more, bright lights from the ship scanned the surface. A voice boomed through the air, cold and mechanical, "Unit LY0047. Surrender yourself immediately." Lyra shook her head, stepping back. "I can't go back. They'll destroy me." Ethan looked up at the ship, then back at her. "Not while I'm here," he said quietly. He moved to the control panel and pressed several switches. The entire building rumbled as hidden metal plates rose from the floor. Lyra gasped as the room transformed. Ethan's workshop was more than it appeared. "This place isn't just for repairs," he said with a small grin. "It's my hideout." Outside, drones descended from the ship, scanning the ground with red lights. Ethan turned to Lyra. "Whatever they want, they're not getting it." Lyra looked at him with fear and hope mixed together. "Why do you help me?" she whispered again. He smiled faintly. "Because maybe helping you means saving something bigger than us both." The door shook as something slammed into it. Lyra's markings glowed brighter, filling the room with blue light. Ethan stepped beside her. Gripping his weapon, the ship above roared. The walls trembled, and the light from her skin grew so bright it filled the entire room. Ethan shielded his eyes and shouted, "Lyra, what are you doing?" Her voice echoed softly through the air. No longer scared. "They think I'm broken," she said. But my mother called it power. Then everything went white. A massive surge of energy erupted from her, sending shockwaves across the city. The ship above cracked, alarms blaring through the air. When the light faded, Ethan was still standing, but the drones were gone, and Lyra was lying unconscious. Her glow fading, Ethan rushed to her side, his hands trembling. "Stay with me, kid," he whispered. "You're safe now." But deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. Somewhere far above, someone was watching, someone powerful, and tomorrow, the true reason Lyra was left to die would finally arrive at his door. The power she carried. The city of Uranus was silent after the explosion. Smoke drifted between the buildings, and the sky was still glowing faintly blue from the burst of energy. People whispered in fear, thinking a new weapon had gone off. But in the lower zone, inside a half-broken workshop, Ethan Walker sat on the floor beside the unconscious alien girl he had saved. Her name still echoed in his mind, like a melody, Lyra. He had seen her glow before, but not like this. This time, her entire body had become light, pure energy. The drones that attacked them had vanished, burned to dust, and the huge ship above had retreated into the clouds. Now everything was quiet, almost too quiet. Ethan brushed the dust from her face. "Hey, kid," he whispered. "You did something big out there." Her breathing was weak but steady. Her silver skin was covered in faint glowing lines. Moving like rivers under her skin, he didn't understand what she was. But one thing was clear. She was not just another refugee. He carried her to the couch and covered her with his jacket again. Then he sat near the window, staring at the broken skyline. The energy she released had wiped out half the street. Yet somehow she hadn't hurt him. It was like the light had avoided him on purpose. He looked down at his hands. Faint blue sparks danced across his fingertips. Something inside him had changed too. Hours passed. When Lyra finally woke, the first thing she saw was Ethan sitting near the heater. Half asleep, she tried to speak, but her throat was dry. He turned quickly and smiled when he saw her eyes open. "You're awake," he said softly. "That's good news." Lyra tried to sit up, but her strength failed. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't mean to hurt you." Ethan shook his head. "You didn't, Lyra," he said. "You saved us both." She looked confused, her glowing marks fading slowly. Her voice trembled. "They'll come again. They always do." "Who are they?" Ethan asked. "The ones chasing you." Lyra's eyes filled with tears. "They call themselves the Illyrian Dominion," she said, "but they are not my people anymore." Ethan frowned. "You said you were Illyrian." "I was," she whispered. "But they say I am a defect, a mistake." Ethan leaned closer. "Because of that light." Lyra nodded. "It's not just light," she said softly. "It's called the core song. It lives inside my kind. But mine is different." She paused, her small hands shaking. "My mother said it's a gift, but the Dominion called it a curse." Ethan rubbed his chin, trying to make sense of it. "So they tried to destroy you." Lyra looked away. "They destroyed everyone who carried it." Outside, thunder rolled again, and the ground trembled slightly. Ethan looked up through the roof window. A blue shimmer rippled across the clouds. Not lightning, something else. He stood quickly. "They're coming back." Lyra shook her head, fear in her eyes. "No," she whispered. "That's not them." The light in the sky grew brighter, spreading like a circle. The air around the building vibrated, humming with a soft melody. Lyra's markings began to glow again. But this time it wasn't fear. It was recognition. She stood slowly, looking at the sky with tears in her eyes. "It's her," she whispered. "My mother." Ethan's eyes widened. The clouds above split open, revealing a giant structure of pure light descending silently. It wasn't a ship of metal. It was made of energy, fluid and alive. The ground trembled, yet the air felt warm and calm. A beam of golden light touched the street in front of the workshop, and from that light, a tall figure emerged. She looked almost human. Her skin shimmered like crystal. Her eyes were silver fire, and her presence filled the air like a song. Lyra ran toward her, crying out, "Mother!" The woman knelt, wrapping her arms around her child. The light from their bodies merged, creating a halo that filled the entire street. Ethan could only stare, speechless. After a moment, the woman looked at him. Her voice echoed not through the air, but inside his mind. "You protected my daughter," she said, "and for that, you carry a part of her now." Ethan froze, realizing what she meant. The sparks in his hands, the warmth in his chest. "You gave me something," he said quietly. She nodded. "When she unleashed her power, it connected to you. It bound your soul to hers." Lyra turned toward him, tears of joy and fear mixing together. "You saved me," she said, "and now the core song is in you too." Ethan stepped back, confused. "I don't understand." The woman smiled gently. "You will," she said. "But know this, the Dominion will return, and they will come for both of you." The sky rumbled again, darker this time. The woman looked up, her face turning serious. "They have sensed the awakening," she said softly. "We must act before they arrive." Ethan looked between them. "What do you mean act?" Lyra's mother reached out her hand, a small sphere of golden light forming in her palm. "This world is not ready for what's coming," she said. "But you are." Ethan felt the air tighten around him as the light floated toward his chest. He tried to step back, but Lyra's small hand touched his arm. "It's okay," she whispered. "She's giving you strength." The light sank into him, and for a second, the whole world went silent. Then his vision changed. He could see the energy of everything, the flow of power through walls, through the earth, through the sky. He gasped, his knees weak. "What is this?" Lyra's mother smiled softly. "The beginning," she said. "You are part of our song now, human." Then she looked toward the clouds, her voice turning distant. "They are almost here," she whispered. "And when they arrive, you will see why the universe fears the kindness of your kind." The wind howled through the city again. Ethan stood tall, his body glowing faintly with golden light. Lyra held her mother's hand, and for the first time, she didn't look like a broken child. She looked like something powerful, something meant to change the stars. As the light ship began to fade back into the sky, her mother's last words echoed through Ethan's mind. "Protect her, and she will save you all." Then the ship vanished, leaving silence behind. Ethan looked at Lyra, her eyes still glowing softly. He nodded once. "If they come," he said, "we fight together." Lyra smiled for the first time, her voice steady and brave. "Together," she whispered, but high above the planet, hidden in the darkness beyond the stars, the Dominion ships were already turning. Their sensors had found what they were looking for, and this time, they were not coming to capture. They were coming to erase. When the stars remembered, the night sky over Uranus was no longer calm. Black clouds twisted above the city, glowing with red energy. The Illyrian Dominion had returned. Their ships were massive and silent, covering the sky like a second darkness. People screamed as beams of crimson light sliced through the clouds. Searching the ground, inside the small workshop, Ethan stood beside Lyra, both staring upward through the cracked roof. The faint golden glow on his hands pulsed in rhythm with Lyra's blue light. He didn't need words to know. The war had found them. Lyra's mother was gone, but her final message still echoed in his mind. "Protect her, and she will save you all." Ethan grabbed his gear and loaded his plasma rifle. Lyra stood quietly, her eyes distant. She could feel the Dominion's voices in her head. Cold and commanding, they were calling her by her old name. "Unit LY-047. Surrender or be destroyed." She looked at Ethan, her voice trembling. "They won't stop. They think I'm a weapon." Ethan shook his head. "No," he said. "You're not a weapon. You're the reason I'm still human." The ground shook as the first Dominion ship descended. Its engines tore the sky apart with red lightning. Ethan pulled Lyra behind him, activating a defense shield from the console. The walls glowed faint blue, barely holding against the pressure. Then the door burst open. Metal soldiers marched inside, their armor sharp and gleaming. They surrounded the room, weapons raised. One of them spoke in a flat voice. "Step aside, human. The defective must be returned to control." Ethan stepped forward, his voice calm but full of fire. "You'll have to go through me." The soldiers paused, scanning him. Their sensors flickered red, detecting something inside him. Unregistered energy signature detected. One said. Ethan smirked. "Yeah, that's new." The moment they fired, Ethan moved. Blue light exploded from his hands, forming a barrier that melted their blasts like rain on glass. He swung his arm, and a wave of energy hurled the soldiers backward, smashing them into the walls. Lyra stared in awe, her eyes wide. "You're using the core song," she whispered. Ethan grinned. "Guess your mom shared the manual with me." The air outside screamed as another blast hit the building. The roof shattered, and a massive figure dropped from the sky. A Dominion commander. Its armor was black and red, its voice deep and metallic. "You cannot fight the Dominion human," it said. "We end what should never have been born." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Funny," he said. "I've heard that before. From people who thought they were gods." The commander raised its weapon, a long spear of red energy. But Lyra stepped forward, glowing brighter than ever. The light from her body spread like fire, wrapping around Ethan. Their powers connected, forming a single golden-blue storm that filled the room. The commander swung, but the spear shattered before it could touch them. The force knocked it backward through the wall, crashing into the street outside. Ethan and Lyra stepped out into the chaos. The city was burning. Ships hovered above, scanning for targets. The people who once laughed at Lyra now ran in fear. Some stopped to stare at her glowing form, whispering, "What is she?" Ethan shouted, "She's hope. Now move." Lyra closed her eyes, hearing her mother's voice in the distance. "The core song is life, not destruction. It connects all things." She took Ethan's hand, and the ground beneath them began to glow. Roots of light spread across the streets, up the walls, into the sky. The air shimmered as power flowed through the planet itself. The Dominion ships fired again, but their beams dissolved in midair. The light shield had grown, not from machines, but from the world itself. Ethan could feel her strength through his veins. Every heartbeat echoed with the rhythm of the universe. He saw visions, other worlds, other lives, all connected by the same light. The Dominion ships faltered, their systems crashing one by one. The sky rippled as the largest ship, the flagship, began to fall. The commander rose again, furious. "You think light will save you?" it roared. Ethan looked at Lyra and said quietly, "No, but love might." Together they raised their hands, and a massive wave of light surged outward. The blast wasn't heat, it wasn't fire. It was pure harmony. Every Dominion machine it touched turned to dust. The red glow faded, the sky cleared, and silence fell. The battle was over, the ships were gone, and the stars above shone brighter than ever before. Ethan fell to his knees, exhausted but alive. Lyra knelt beside him, her small hand glowing softly as she touched his face. "You did it," she whispered. He smiled weakly. "No, kid, we did it." All around them, people began to emerge from hiding. They looked at the human and the alien girl, unsure what they had just witnessed, but they could feel it. Something inside the planet had changed. No longer fear, but peace. No longer hate, but wonder. Lyra looked up at the sky, where one last golden spark drifted down. It took the shape of her mother's light form, smiling gently. Her voice echoed softly. "The stars remember kindness, and they remember you, my child. And you, human." Then the light faded, leaving warmth behind. Ethan stood slowly, looking at the people gathering around them. They didn't see a beggar and a stranger anymore. They saw heroes. He placed a hand on Lyra's shoulder and said quietly, "Come on, we've got a world to rebuild." She smiled, her blue eyes bright again. "Together?" she asked. He nodded. "Always." And as they walked through the ruins of the city, the wind carried a faint song through the air, a melody of light and life. The core song itself, it whispered through the stars, across galaxies, telling the story of the night when a human stood for an alien child, and the universe finally understood what humanity truly was. Not conquerors, not destroyers, but protectors. the ones who fight not because they are strong, but because they cannot stand to see the innocent fall. The legend spread far beyond Uranus. They called it the night of the human flame, and in the endless dark of space, that flame still burned, forever.